He's just a
Ready?
Alright, when I say the words Air Force One, what is the first thing that y'all think of?
Nelly.
military.
Air
Shoes.
Force One.
Oh, I think of like the Air Force.
Shoes.
Capitals, the president.
Okay, well normally people usually think about the airplane that carries the president. But in reality, the plane isn't really called Air Force One. It doesn't even have a name. Technically, Air Force, or Air Force One is just a name that the government gives. It's a radio name that the government gives to an Air Force One plane that carries the president in. So technically, the president could be in a single Cessna 47 and it'd be called Air Force One. Kind of cool. Today, I would like to inform my audience about Air Force One and what are some of the many obstacles it takes to get the plane on flight. Every time the president goes to take a flight on Air Force One, whether it be across the state or the country, the government must strategically plan and prepare for the flight. Preparation takes weeks and weeks for it, starting off to the food menu that's served on the plane, all the way to a life-threatening attack that may occur during the flight. My audience will also learn a little bit of history about Air Force One, how it came about, what are cool features on the plane, and what actually goes on before a flight, or something that goes on before a flight. But before I get started, does anybody know the actual time or has an idea when the Air Force One actually took flight, very first one? No, not really. Neither did I. But it's actually, it's over upon 60 years, a lot of jets and Boeings and aircrafts have been used, but it was actually 1945, when President Roosevelt was carried in it. It was actually called Guess Where 2. Guess Where and plane number 2, not Guess Where 2. But this was actually reviewed by the Secret Service, and the Secret Service actually denied it because it had a lot of faults in it, and it was just not safe for the president. Then the Secret Service actually reconfigured a C-158 Skymaster. This actually had a telephone to radio contact, it had a sleeping area, and it actually also had a wheelchair elevator that the president needed, being that he suffered from polio. Then it was, but although it was just configured modified just for him, he only used it once. Then after that, they modified, or after Roosevelt dies in 1945, President Truman actually replaced it with a C-118 Liftmaster. This was actually pretty cool because it also had like a bald eagle in front of the nose of the plane. Let me also just remind you, these planes weren't as they are today. These were like metal tin planes. They didn't have really good defense mechanisms or anything like that. Later, Eisenhower, during his presidency, he introduced 4 other planes. They served for his transport, but at the end of the presidency, the Air Force actually introduced 3 other planes. Later, in 1942, Kennedy then purchased another Boeing 707 plane for his use. Though he never used this plane, he actually used Eisenhower's planes. But actually, Kennedy, to modify the planes, he actually had help from a Frenchman and his wife, where the actual colors blue, gold, and white, which are used today. Now that I've bored you all with dates and planes and whatever, let's talk about technology that today. Now let's talk about technologies that's been used. Today, a Boeing 747 is used to cruise the president around. Actually, Air Force One, when not in flight and when not in use, it is in Maryland. It's an unmarked hangar in Maryland, which is always supervised 24/7, where it's also worked on, and it's always under watch. The Boeing 747 is unlike any modified aircraft in the world. Some cool technology that it has are infrared missiles, which is kind of cool. If you just imagine a Boeing 747 firing missiles at you. It has infrared flares to mislead in case somebody wants to shoot it down with a bazooka or anything. It has to mislead on-fire missiles. It also has electronics to shield any magnetic electric pulses. These are just a few features that the planes have for top secret reasons. You can't find anything according to Mark Tillman, which is the pilot of Air Force One, or the ex-pilot now since Obama's president, there are a lot of areas, a lot of systems that I can't really discuss, but everyone needs to know that our passengers, our President of the United States is safe. They are well protected. Our staff is well protected. The plane has tremendous capabilities, but it's just not appropriate to let the world know or the bad guys know what we have available. Now that technology has been discussed, let me go ahead and talk about what actually goes on during a flight. As part from keeping the 747 tip-top shape, there's an actual group called the Presidential Airlift Group. This consists of hundreds of workers by the government, when they start off with the stewardess who actually steward your food, or all the way up to the Secret Service. Now what this group is in charge of, they actually send hundreds of military workers, or part of this group, up to the destination up in advance, maybe about a week into advance. What they're in charge of doing is actually just preparing for the arrival of the president. But they send, along with them going, they have the Secret Service going. They have jet fuel sent. They have presidential vehicles. They have marksmen sent. They even send out their own metal detectors. The metal detectors are sent out just to screen every person who's going to wait there, or who's waiting for the arrival of the president. All while this is happening, the food that will be served gets prepared. The stewardess, which are women, of course, actually security goes beyond security at this point. The stewardess actually dress in civilian clothes, and they are sent out to different parts or to different markets in the city, Walmart, H-E-B, and they all gather up the food, and then they all bring it back. Everything gets chopped off. Half of the food gets prepared on the ground, the other half gets prepared while in flight. And the reason they do this is actually to prevent food disease, to prevent any food sabotage that might be linked to the president. And so to conclude, today we have learned a little bit on how Air Force One works. It's mentioned that these are just few routines, and I mean very few routines, that go on while the president goes in flight, because it's always very important to protect the president, whether he's on the ground or in the air. To leave you off, I would just want to leave you all with a few facts that I stumbled upon while researching. The Beast is actually the name of the limo that the president rides in. I didn't know that. It actually has resealable gas tanks that has oxygen on tank. Oxygen on board. A normal Boeing 747 seats 750 people. Air Force One just sits 70. And everyone in the plane is actually assigned to a special seat. The higher you rank in government, the closer you get to sit to the president, I guess. Alright, I have more, but I'm going to go ahead and stop, and that's it.